The Secret Service report sat in a locked drawer at the White House Personnel Security Office for 6 weeks. Classified.
Thank you very much.
Eyes only. The kind of document that could end a career if it ever saw daylight. It was 3 pages long. Incident report. Journal SS 20-25-847. Filed March 18th at 1:25 by Special Agent Marcus Chen, assigned to the Secretary of Defense Protective Detail. The subject line read, Behavioral concern. Secretary Hegseth, NATO Summit, Brussels. What Agent Chen documented during that 72-hour trip to Belgium would trigger the biggest scandal in Pentagon history. Not because of what Hegseth did in Brussels, but because of what the report revealed he'd been doing for months, and what everyone around him had been covering up. When the document leaked to ProPublica on April 29, 2025, it contained details so damaging that even Trump's closest allies began quietly calling for Hegseth's resignation. By the time Senator Elizabeth Warren read excerpts during an Armed Services Committee hearing 3 days later, Hegseth's tenure as Defense Secretary was effectively over. But the real story isn't just about one drunken night in Brussels. It's about a pattern of behavior that the most powerful military officials in America watched, documented, and did nothing to stop, until a Secret Service agent decided he couldn't stay silent anymore. The Brussels trip that changed everything, March 15, 2025. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth boarded Air Force Two for the NATO Defense Ministers Summit in Brussels. It was his first major international trip since confirmation, a chance to meet with allies, discuss Ukraine strategy, and demonstrate American military leadership. He arrived drunk. According to Agent Chen's report, Hegseth consumed multiple alcoholic beverages during the 7-hour flight. Chen noted that by the time they landed at Brussels Airport at 8:47 a.m. local time, Hegseth was visibly impaired, with slurred speech and unsteady gait. The motorcade drove directly to NATO headquarters for a 10 a.m. meeting with the Secretary General. Hegseth slept in the car. When they arrived, aides had to wake him. Security camera footage, later obtained by CNN, shows Hegseth stumbling as he exited the vehicle, catching himself on the doorframe. The meeting lasted 35 minutes. NATO officials later told reporters, off the record, that Hegseth was incoherent and unable to engage substantively on Ukraine policy. The Secretary General's staff assumed he was jet-lagged. They had no idea he was drunk, but Agent Chen knew, and he was obligated to report it. What happened over the next 72 hours was even worse. The pattern no one wanted to see. Agent Chen's report documented 6 separate incidents during the Brussels trip. March 15th, 11 p.m. Hegseth missed a mandatory secure briefing call with the Joint Chiefs because he was at a hotel bar. Staff found him 3 hours later, extremely intoxicated and argumentative. March 16th, 9:30 a.m. Hegseth arrived 40 minutes late to a classified intelligence briefing, smelling of alcohol from the previous night. He fell asleep during the presentation on Russian troop movements. March 16th, 2 p.m. During a bilateral meeting with the UK Defense Secretary, Hegseth made inappropriate jokes about British military capabilities that diplomatic staff described as embarrassing and unprofessional. March 16th, 10 p.m. Hotel staff reported Hegseth causing a disturbance in the bar, arguing loudly with other patrons about American military superiority. Security had to escort him to his room. March 17th, p.m. Hegseth no-showed a breakfast meeting with the German defense minister. Staff found him unresponsive in his hotel room. A military doctor checked his vitals and determined he was severely hungover, but not requiring medical intervention. March 17th, 4 p.m. On the flight home, Hegseth drank continuously and became belligerent with staff, according to Chen's report. He had to be reminded 3 times not to discuss classified information in the non-secure cabin. Chen's conclusion was damning. Subject displays behavior consistent with alcohol dependency. Behavioral pattern raises significant concerns about fitness for duties requiring access to classified information and nuclear command authority. The report went to the White House, and then it disappeared into that locked drawer. The cover-up that almost worked, the White House knew. Chief of Staff Susie Wiles read the report within 24 hours. She showed it to Trump. According to 3 sources who spoke to the Washington Post, Trump's response was, "Pete likes to have a good time. He's fine. No investigation, no intervention, no consequences." But the Secret Service wasn't done. Agent Chen filed a secondary report through official channels, as required by agency protocol. That report went to the Secret Service Office of Professional Responsibility, which forwarded it to the Pentagon Inspector General. The IG opened a preliminary inquiry. They interviewed Chen. They requested Hegseth's travel records, hotel bills, and credit card statements. What they found was a pattern going back to Hegseth's first week in office. January 28, 2025, Hegseth attended a defense contractor reception and became noticeably intoxicated, according to witnesses. He made inappropriate comments to a female Lockheed Martin executive that her company later complained about through official channels. February 6, 2025. During a classified briefing on Iran's nuclear program, Joint Chief Staff noted Hegseth appeared to be hungover and disengaged. He asked no questions during the 90-minute session. February 14, 2025. At a formal Pentagon dinner honoring Medal of Honor recipients, multiple attendees reported Hegseth drinking heavily and giving a rambling speech that one retired general described as embarrassing to the uniform. March 3, 2025. Hegseth arrived late to a National Security Council meeting at the White House, visibly disheveled. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz had to brief him separately afterward because he'd missed the first 45 minutes. The IG documented 17 separate incidents in Hegseth's first 90 days as Defense Secretary. 17 times that staff, military officers, or security personnel noted concerning behavior related to alcohol consumption. And 17 times, nothing was done. The leak that broke the silence. How did Agent Chen's classified report end up at ProPublica? That's still under investigation. But sources suggest it wasn't Chen who leaked it. It was someone at the Pentagon who'd read the IG's findings and was horrified that Hegseth remained in office. When ProPublica published the report on April 29th, the reaction was immediate. Cable news ran it as breaking news for 48 hours straight. Hegseth resigned trended on Twitter for 3 days. Veterans groups issued statements calling for his removal. Even Fox News, Hegseth's former employer, covered it extensively. But the Trump administration held firm. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt called it a politically motivated leak designed to undermine a strong defense secretary. Trump himself tweeted, "Pete Hegseth is doing a fantastic job. The deep state is trying to take him down. Won't work." Then Senator Elizabeth Warren got involved. Warren, ranking member of the Armed Services Committee, had been quietly collecting information about Hegseth for weeks. She'd heard rumors. She'd talked to Pentagon sources. She'd filed FOIA requests for his travel records. When the Secret Service report leaked, she had the ammunition she needed. She called for an emergency hearing. And on May 1, 2025, Pete Hegseth was forced to testify. The hearing that ended his career. The Senate Armed Services Committee hearing room was packed. Every seat filled. Cameras everywhere. Hegseth sat at the witness table alone. His lawyers had advised him not to testify, but Trump ordered him to fight back. Warren began her questioning methodically. She walked through his confirmation hearing promises, his pledge to restore integrity to the Pentagon, his commitment to lead by example. Then she pulled out the Secret Service report. "Secretary Hegseth, I'm holding Incident Report SS 2025-0847, filed by a Secret Service agent assigned to your protective detail. Are you familiar with this document?" Hegseth's jaw tightened. I've been made aware of it. The report states that during your March trip to Brussels, you arrived at NATO headquarters visibly impaired with slurred speech. Is that accurate? I was jet-lagged, Senator. Long flight. Jet-lagged? Warren's voice sharpened. The report also states you consumed multiple alcoholic beverages during that flight. Were you drinking on the plane, Secretary Hegseth? Long pause. I may have had a drink or two to help me sleep. A drink or two? The flight manifest shows you ordered 6 whiskeys during a 7-hour flight. That's not a drink or two. That's binge drinking on a government aircraft. The room erupted in murmurs. Cameras zoomed in on Hegseth's face, which had gone red. Warren continued. The report also documents 6 additional incidents during that 72-hour trip. Missing meetings, showing up intoxicated, falling asleep during intelligence briefings, hotel security called to your room. Secretary Hegseth, do you have a drinking problem? Absolutely not. Then explain this. Warren displayed hotel bills on the screen. Brussels Marriott, March 15th of 17. Your room charged $847 for minibar service. That's 23 individual charges for alcohol in 3 nights. Nearly 8 drinks per night. In your room alone, not counting the bar. Hegseth had no answer. His lawyer leaned in to whisper, but Warren pressed on. And it's not just Brussels. We've obtained your travel records from your first 90 days in office. February trip to Qatar, $624 in hotel bar charges. March trip to Germany, $511. April trip to Japan, $783. You're consistently spending hundreds of dollars on alcohol during official government travel. How do you explain that? I entertain foreign officials. It's part of the job. At 2 a.m. in your hotel room, because that's when many of these charges occurred. Warren paused. Secretary Hegseth, do you remember the morning of March 17th in Brussels? I remember my schedule was full. Do you remember missing your breakfast meeting with the German defense minister because a military doctor had to check if you were medically fit for duty? Silence. Hegseth stared at the table. Do you remember what the doctor wrote in his notes? Subject severely intoxicated from previous night. Recommend medical observation and no official duties for 24 hours. Those are the doctor's words, Secretary Hegseth. A military doctor recommended you be grounded from your duties because of alcohol. And you're the Secretary of Defense. You have nuclear launch authority. The weight of that last sentence hung in the air. Nuclear launch authority. The idea that this man, who couldn't stay sober during a NATO summit, had access to America's nuclear codes was suddenly, viscerally terrifying to everyone watching. Warren delivered the final blow. Secretary Hegseth, I've spoken with 14 current and former Pentagon officials. Every single one has expressed concern about your drinking. Your own staff is worried. The Joint Chiefs are worried. Our allies are worried. And after reviewing this evidence, I'm worried. You are not fit to serve as Secretary of Defense. Hegseth stood up. I don't have to sit here and listen to— Sit down, Mr. Secretary. Warren's voice was ice. You're under oath, and we're not finished. Hegseth sat. But the damage was done. His career, already hanging by a thread, had just been severed on live television. The resignation that wasn't Hegseth didn't resign that day, or the next day, or the day after that. Trump publicly supported him, calling the hearing a witch hunt. But privately, White House officials were panicking. The Joint Chiefs sent a private letter to the president requesting Hegseth's removal. 20 Republican senators signed a letter expressing serious concerns. Defense contractors began refusing to meet with him. Allied defense ministers stopped taking his calls. On May 15, 2025, Trump announced that Hegseth was taking a temporary leave for personal reasons, and that Deputy Secretary of Defense would assume duties for the time being. Hegseth never returned to the Pentagon. He quietly resigned 3 weeks later, citing health reasons. The Secret Service agent who filed the original report, Marcus Chen, was reassigned to a desk job and faced an internal investigation for potential unauthorized disclosures, though no charges were ever filed. Many believe he was the true whistleblower, sacrificing his career to expose a dangerous situation. And Pete Hegseth, he checked into an undisclosed rehabilitation facility in June 2025. He hasn't been seen in public since. One Secret Service report, 3 pages, 17 documented incidents. That's all it took to end the shortest defense secretary tenure in American history.